Hi everyone, and we are back today. I am Brini. If you don't know me, then I read books. Right now, I've started Percy Jackson's series. We are not sure. After I finish this, I might pick up Aragon. We are mixing things up. Welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for supporting me. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And let's get started with the book. We are doing the Titan's Curse, Percy Jackson, Book 3. Very exciting book. So, till now, Annabeth got kidnapped. Um, the Half-Blood clan, the people, were attacked by a manticore, and Bianca D'Angelo signs up to be a hunter in Artemis's group rather than staying a half-blood. I mean, she is a half-blood, but rather accepting the camp, she picks Artemis's hunters and leaves her brother Nico D'Angelo to be a part, to leaves her brother, right? And they had a prophecy. Uh, we get a dream. Percy gets dream. Zoe Nightshade, the second in command of Artemis, gets a dream that Artemis is in chains, and so there is a prophecy that the five people have to travel. Um, Campers and hunters have to combine together and go, and one of them will perish, one of them would be lost, and one of them would be killed by their parent. So it is a big deal, and we don't know who is getting killed, who is lost, and I have avoided looking at spoilers for a while. I'm not the kind of person who stops looking at spoilers. I would specifically go for spoilers, but instead I thought, hey, it might make a for good scene for my vlog, so I have kept it hidden from myself, and I hope I can stand that. Anyway, let's get started. We are on chapter 9. I learn how to grow zombies. Is this? I think this is a reference to the game, Zombies versus Plants. Damn, I missed that game. It isn't the same as to playing it on computer than just to play on mobile. Let's see. The thing about flying on a Pegasus during the daytime is that if you're not careful, you can cause a serious traffic accident on the Long Island Expressway. I had to keep Blackjack up in the clouds, which were fortunately pretty low in the winter. We darted around, trying to keep the white Camp Half-Blood van inside. And if it was cold on the ground, it was seriously cold in the air, with icy rain stinging my skin. I was wishing I'd brought some of that Camp Half-Blood orange thermal underwear they sold in the camp store, but after the story about Phoebe and the Centaur Blood t-shirt, I wasn't sure I trusted their products anymore. We lost the van twice, but I had a pretty good sense that they would go into Manhattan first, so it wasn't too difficult to pick up their trail again. Traffic was bad with the holidays and all. It was mid-morning before they got into the city. I landed Blackjack near the top of the Chrysler Building and watched the white camp van, thinking it would pull into Greyhound Station, but it just kept driving. "Where's Argus taking them?" I muttered. "Oh, Argus ain't driving, boss. That girl is." "Which girl?" "The hunter girl, with the silver crown thing in her head." "Zoe? That's the one. Hey, look, there's a donut shop. Can we hit the drive-thru?" Blackjack, you sweet, sweet child. I tried explaining to Blackjack that taking a flying horse through the drive-thru would give every cop in the donut shop a heart attack, but he didn't seem to get it. Meanwhile, the van kept snaking its way towards the Lincoln Tunnel. It had never occurred to me that Zoe could drive. I mean, she didn't look 16. Then again, she was immortal. I wondered if she had a New York license, and if so, what her birth date said. Well, let's get after them. We were about to leap off Chrysler Building when Blackjack whined an alarm and almost threw me. Something was curling around my leg like a snake. I reached for my sword, but when I looked down, there was no snake. Vines. Grapevines had sprouted from the cracks between the stones. It's the moment it said grapevines, I was like, Mr. D is here. Had sprouted from the cracks between the stones of the building. They were wrapping around Blackjack's leg, lashing down my ankles so we couldn't move. Going somewhere? Mr. D asked. He was leaning against the building with his feet levitating in the air, his leopard skin warm-up suit and black hair whipping around in the wind. God alert! Blackjack yelled. It's the wine dude! Blackjack, you need to calm down. Mr. D sighed in exasperation. The next person, or horse, who calls me the wine dude will end up in the bottle of a Merlot. Mr. D, I tried to keep my voice calm as the grapevines continued to wrap around my legs. What do you want? Oh, what do I want? You thought, perhaps, that the immortal, all-powerful director of the camp would not notice you leaving without permission. Well, maybe. I should throw you off this building, minus the flying horse, and see how heroic you sound on the way down. I balled my fists. I knew I should keep my mouth shut in shame, and I couldn't stand either idea. Oh, wait. I skipped an entire line. Sorry. I balled my fists. I knew I should keep my mouth shut, but Mr. D was about to kill me or haul me back to camp in shame, and I couldn't stand either idea. Why do you hate me so much? What did I ever do to you? Purple flames flickered in his eyes. You're a hero, boy. I need no other reason. I have to go on this quest. I've got to help my friends. That's something you wouldn't understand. Boss? Blackjack said nervously. Seeing as how we're wrapped in vines 300 meters in the air, you might want to talk nice. See? Even the horse has a better brain than you, Percy. The grapevines coiled tighter around me. Below us, the white van was getting further and further away. Soon it would be out of sight. Did I ever tell you about Ariadne? Mr. D asked. Beautiful young princess of Crete. She liked helping her friends too. In fact, she helped a young hero named Theseus, also son of Poseidon. She gave him a ball of magic thread and let him find his way out of the labyrinth. And do you know how Theseus rewarded her? Oh God, I do not want to hear the end of the story. It's I've read this story like 10 years ago, so I don't even remember the story, but something tells me this story doesn't end well. The answer I wanted to give was I don't care, but I figured that would make Mr. D finish his story any faster. They got married. Happily ever after, the end, I said. Mr. D sneered. Not quite. Theseus said he would marry her. Sorry, said it. Theseus said he would marry her. He took her aboard his ship and sailed for Athens. Halfway back on a little island called Naxos, what's the word you mortals use today? He dumped her. I found her there, alone, heartbroken, crying her eyes out. She had given up everything, left everything she knew behind to help a dashing young hero who tossed her away like a broken sandal. That's wrong, I said, but that was thousands of years ago. What's that got to do with me? Mr. D regarded me coldly. I fell in love with Ariadne, boy. I healed her broken heart. And when she died, I made her my immortal wife in Olympus. She waits for me even now. I shall go back to her when I am done with this infernal century of punishment at your ridiculous camp. I stared at him. You're married? But I thought you got in trouble for chasing a wood nymph. My point is, you heroes never change. You accuse us gods of being vain. You should look at yourselves. You take what you want, use whoever you have to, and then you betray them, everyone around you. So you'll excuse me if I have no love for heroes. They are selfish, ungrateful lot. Ask Ariadne or Medea. For the matter, ask Zoe Nightshade. What do you mean, asked Zoe. He waved his hand dismissively. Go, follow your silly friends. The vines uncurled around my legs. You're you're letting me go. Just like that? I blinked in disbelief. The prophecy says at least two of you will die. Perhaps I'll get lucky and you'll be one of them. But mark my words, son of Poseidon, live or die, you will prove no better than other heroes. With that, Dionysus snapped his fingers. His image folded up like a paper display. There was a pop, and he was gone, leaving a faint scent of grapes that was quickly blown away by the wind. Too close, Blackjack said. I nodded, though I almost would have been less worried if Mr. D had hauled me back to camp. The fact that he let me go meant he really believed we stood a fair chance of crashing and burning on this quest. Come on, Blackjack, I said, trying to sound upbeat. I'll buy you some donuts in New Jersey. As it turned out, I didn't buy any Blackjack donuts in New Jersey. You're just proving Mr. D's points, Percy. Just proving his points. Zoe drove south like a crazy person, and we were into Maryland she before she finally pulled over at a service station. Blackjack nearly tumbled out of the sky. He was so tired. I'll be okay, boss, he panted. Just catching my breath. Stay here. I'm going to scout. Stay here. I can handle. I can do that. I put on my cap of invisibility and walked over to the convenience store. It was difficult not to sneak. I had to keep reminding myself that nobody could see me. It was hard, too, because I had to remember to get out of people's way so they wouldn't slam into me. I thought I'd go inside and warm up, maybe get a cup of hot chocolate or something. I had a little change in my pocket. I could leave it on the counter. I was wondering if the cup would turn invisible when I picked it. It wouldn't. Or if I'd have to deal with a floating hot chocolate problem when my whole plan was ruined by Zoe, Thalia, Bianca, and Grover all coming out of the store. Grover, are you sure? Thalia was saying. Well, pretty sure. 99%. Okay, 85%. And you did this with acorns? Bianca asked like she couldn't believe it. Grover looked offended. It's a time-honored tracking spell. I mean, I'm pretty sure I did it right. DC is about 60 miles from here. Nico and I, Bianca said. She frowned. We used to live there. That's strange. I'd forgotten. I dislike this, Zoe said. We should go straight west. The prophecy said west. Oh, like your tracking skills are better, Thalia growled. Zoe stepped towards her. You challenge my skills, you scullion? You know nothing of being a hunter. Oh, scullion. You calling me a scullion? What the heck is a scullion? Whoa, you two? Come on, not again, Grover said nervously. Grover's right, Bianca said. DC is our best bet. Zoe didn't look convinced, but she nodded reluctantly. Very well, let us keep moving. You're going to get us arrested driving, Thalia grumbled. I look closer to 16 than you do. Perhaps, Zoe snapped, but I have been driving since automobiles were invented. Let us go. As Blackjack and I continued south, following the van, I wondered whether Zoe had been kidding. I didn't know exactly when cars were invented, but I figured that was like prehistoric times, back when people watched black and white TV and hunted dinosaurs. Man, how many timelines are you mixing up, Percy? How old was Zoe? And what had Mr. D been talking about? And what bad experience had she had with heroes? As we got closer to Washington, Blackjack started slowing down and dropping attitude. He was breathing heavily. You okay? I asked him. Fine, boss. I could take on an army. You don't sound so good. And suddenly I felt guilty because I'd been running the Pegasus for a half a day, non-stop, trying to keep up with highway traffic. Even for a flying horse, that would be rough. Don't worry about me, boss. I'm a tough one. I figured he was right, but I also figured Blackjack would run himself into the ground before he complained, and I didn't want that. Fortunately, the van started to slow down. It crossed Potomac River into central Washington. I started thinking about air patrols and missiles and stuff like that. I didn't know exactly how all those defenses worked and wasn't sure if Pegasi even showed up on your typical military radar, but I didn't want to find out by getting shot out of the sky. Set me down there. That's close enough, I told Blackjack. Blackjack was so tired he didn't complain. He dropped towards the Washington Monument and set me on the grass. The van was only a few blocks away. Zoe had parked at the curb. I looked at Blackjack. I want you to go back to camp. Get some rest. Graze. I'll be fine. Blackjack cocked his head skeptically. You sure, boss? You've done enough already. I'll be fine, and thanks a ton, I said. A ton of hay, maybe. Blackjack mused. That sounds good. All right, but be careful, boss. I got a feeling that they didn't come here to meet anything friendly and handsome like me. Blackjack, nobody is more handsome than you are. You would always be the most handsome Pegasus ever. I promise to be careful. Then Blackjack took off, circling twice around Monument before disappearing into the clouds. I looked over at the white van. Everybody was getting out. Grover pointed towards one of the big buildings lining the mall. Thalia nodded, and four of them trudged off into the cold wind. I started to follow, but then I froze. A block away, the door of a black sedan opened. A man with grey military haircut got out. He was wearing dark shades and a black overcoat. Now, maybe in Washington you'd expected guys like that to be everywhere, but it dawned on me that I'd seen the same car a couple of times on the highway going south. It had been following the van. The guy took out his cell phone and said something into it. Then he looked around like he was making sure the coast was clear and started walking down the mall in the direction of my friends. The worst of all, when he turned towards me, I recognized his face. It was Dr. Thorne, the Manticore from Westover Hall. Well, at least we know that the Manticore isn't dead yet. Asshole. I have no idea what you heard. I didn't say anything. Invisibility cap on, I followed Thorne from a distance. My heart was pounding. If he had survived that fall from cliff, then Annabeth must have too. My dreams had been right. She was alive and being held prisoner. Thorne kept well back from my friends, careful not to be seen. Finally, Grover stopped in front of a big building that said Air and Space Museum. The Smithsonian! I'd been here a million years ago with my mom, but everything had looked so much bigger then. Thalia checked the door. It was open, but there weren't many people going in. Too cold, and it was a school holidays. They slipped inside. Doctor Thorne hesitated. I wasn't sure why, but he didn't go into the museum. He turned and headed across the mall. I made a split-second decision and followed him. Thorne crossed the street and climbed the steps to the Museum of Natural History. There was a big sign on the door. At first I thought it said closed for pirate event, but then I realized pirate must be private. I followed Doctor Thorne inside, through a huge chamber full of mastodons and dinosaur skeletons. There were voices up ahead, coming from behind a set of closed doors. Two guards stood outside. They opened the doors for Thorne, and I had to sprint to get inside before they closed them. Inside, what I saw was terrible. I almost gasped out loud, which probably would have got me killed. I was in a huge round room with balcony ringing the second level. At least a dozen mortal guards stood on the balcony, plus two monsters, reptilian women with double snake trunks instead of legs. I'd seen them before. Annabeth had called them Scythian Dracania. But that wasn't the worst of it. Standing between the snake women, I could swear he was looking straight down at me, was my old enemy Luke. He looked terrible. His skin was pale and his blond hair looked almost gray, as if he'd aged 10 years in just a few months. The angry light in his eyes was still there, and so was the scar down the side of his face, where a dragon had once scratched him. But the scar was now ugly red, as though it had recently been reopened. Next to him, sitting down so that the shadows covered him, was another man. All I could see were his knuckles on the gilded arms of the chair, like a throne. "Well?" asked the man in the chair. His voice was just like the one I'd heard in my dream. Not as creepy as Kronos, but deeper and stronger, like the earth itself was talking. It filled the room even though he wasn't yelling. I don't know, this comparison seems that they are talking about Uranus, Kronos' father. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Doctor Thorne took off his shades. His two-colored eyes, brown and blue, glittered with excitement. He made a stiff bow and then spoke in his weird French accent. "They were here, General. I'm not going to do a thick French accent because I don't know how to." "I know that, you fool. But where?" boomed the man. "In the Rocket Museum. The Air and Space Museum," Luke corrected irritably. Doctor Thorne glared at Luke. "As you say, sir." I got the feeling Thorne would just as soon impale Luke with one of his spikes as call him sir. "How many?" Luke asked. Thorne pretended not to hear. "How many?" the general demanded. "Four, General," Thorne said. "The satyr, Grover Underwood, and the girl with the spiky black hair and the, how do you say, punk clothes, and the horrible shield." "Thalia," Luke said. "And the two other girls. Hunters. One wears a silver circlet." "That one. I know," the general growled. Everyone in the room shifted uncomfortably. "Let me take them," Luke said to the general. "We have more than enough patience." "Wait, I can do this." "Patience," the general said. "They'll have their hands full already. I've sent a little playmate to keep them occupied. But we cannot risk you, my boy." Yes, boy, you are much too fragile to risk. Let me finish them off, Dr. Thorne said with a cruel smile. No. The general rose from his chair, and I got my first look at him. He was tall and muscular, with light brown skin and slicked back dark hair. He wore an expensive brown silk suit like the guys on the Wall Street wear, but you'd never mistake this dude for a broker. He had a brutal face, huge shoulders, and hands that could snap a flagpole in half. His eyes were like stone. I felt as if I were looking at a living statue. It was amazing he could even move. You have already failed me, Thorn, he said. But, General, no excuses. Thorn flinched. I thought Thorn was scary when I first saw him in his black uniform at military academy. But now, standing before General, Thorn looked like a silly wannabe soldier. The general was a real deal. He didn't need a uniform. He was born a commander. I should throw you into the pits of Tartarus for your incompetence, the general said. I send you to capture a child of three elder gods, and you bring me a scrawny daughter of Athena. But you promised me revenge, a command of my own. I am Lord Kronos' senior commander, the general said, and I will choose lieutenants who get me results. It was only thanks to Luke that we salvaged our plan at all. Now get out of my sight, Thorn, until I find some other menial task for you. Thorn's face turned purple with rage. I thought he was going to start frothing at the mouth or shooting spines, but he just bowed awkwardly and left the room. Now, my boy, the general turned to Luke. The first thing we must do is isolate the half-blood Thalia. The monster we seek will then come to her. The hunters will be difficult to dispose of, Luke said. Zoe Nightshade, do not speak her name. Sorry. General, Luke swallowed. The general silenced him with a wave of his hand. Let me show you, my boy, how we will bring the hunters down. He pointed to the guard on the ground level. Do you have the teeth? The guy stumbled forward with a ceramic pot. Yes, General. Plant them. In the corner of the room was a big circle of dirt, where I guess a dinosaur exhibit was supposed to go. I watched nervously as the guard took sharp white teeth out of the pot and pushed them into the soil. He smoothed them over while the general smiled coldly. The guard stepped back from the dirt and wiped his hands. Ready, General. Excellent. Water them, and we will let them scent their prey. Oh shit. The guard picked up a little tin watering can with daisies painted on it, which was kind of bizarre because what he poured out wasn't water. It was dark red liquid, and I got the feeling it wasn't Hawaiian punch. The soil began to bubble. Soon, the general said, I will show you, Luke, soldiers that will make your army from that little boat look insignificant. Luke clenched his fists. I've spent a year training my forces. Yeah, right. When the Princess Andromeda arrives on the mountain, they'll be the best. Ha! The general said. I don't deny your troops will make a fine honor guard for Lord Kronos. And you, of course, will have a role to play. I thought Luke turned paler when the general said that. But under my leadership, the forces of Lord Kronos will increase 100-fold. We will be unstoppable. Behold, my ultimate killing machines. The soil erupted. I stepped back nervously. In each spot where the tooth had been planted, a creature was struggling out of the dirt. The first of them said, Mew. It was a kitten, a little orange tabby with stripes like a tiger. Then another appeared, until there were a dozen rolling around and playing in the dirt. Everyone stared at them in disbelief. The general roared, "What is this? Cute cuddly kittens? Where did you find those teeth?" I would have loved to see cuddly cute kittens. The guard who had brought the teeth cowered in fear. "From the exhibit, sir. Just like you said." The saber-toothed tiger. "No, you idiot. I said Tyrannosaurus. Gather up those infernal fuzzy little beasts and take them outside. Never let me see your face again." "Come on. Not the kittens." The terrified guard dropped his watering can. He gathered up the kittens and scrambled out of the room. "You! Get me the right teeth, now!" The general pointed to another guard. The new guard ran off to carry out his orders. "Imbeciles," muttered the general. "This is why I don't use mortals. They are unreliable," Luke said. "They are weak-minded, easily bought, and violent." "I love them," the general said. A minute later the guard hustled into the room with his hand full of large pointy teeth. "Excellent," the general said. He climbed onto the balcony rail and jumped down. 6 meters. When he landed, the marble floor cracked under his leathery shoes. He stood, wincing, and rubbed his shoulders. "Curse my stiff neck." "Another hot pad, sir?" "More Tylenol?" a guard asked. "No, it'll pass." "For God's sake, have a Tylenol." The general brushed off his silk suit, then snatched up the teeth. "I shall do this myself." He held up one of the teeth and smiled. "Dinosaur teeth, ha! Those foolish mortals don't even know when they have dragon teeth in their possession. And not just any dragon teeth. These come from the ancient Siberius herself. They shall do nicely." He planted them in the dirt, 12 in all. Then he scooped up the watering can. He sprinkled the soil with the red liquid and tossed the can away. Held his arms out wide. "Rise." Oh my God, so dramatic. Honestly, if you're a villain, you need to have a flair for drama, or you are not a real villain. The dirt trembled. A single skeletal hand shot out of the ground, grasping at the air. The general looked up at the balcony. "Quickly, do you have the scent?" "Yes, lord," one of the snake ladies said. She took out a sash of silvery fabric, like the kind of the hunters wore. "Excellent. One of my warriors catch its scent. They will pursue its owner relentlessly. Nothing can stop them. No weapons known to half-blood or hunter. They will tear the hunters and their allies to shreds. Toss it here." As he said that, skeletons erupted from the ground. There were 12 of them, one for each tooth the general had planted. They were nothing like Halloween skeletons, or the kind you might see in cheesy movies. They were growing flesh as I watched, turning into men, but men with dull grey skin, yellow eyes, and modern clothes. Skin-tight grey vests, camo trousers, and combat boots. If you didn't look too closely, you could almost believe they were human. But their flesh was transparent and their bodies shimmered underneath like X-ray images. One of them looked straight at me, regarding me coldly, and I knew that no cap of invisibility would fool it. The snake lady released the scarf and it fluttered down into the general's hand. As soon as he gave it to the warriors, they would hunt Zoe and other hunters until they were extinct. I didn't have time to think. I ran and jumped with all my might, plowing into the warriors and snatching the scarf out of the air. "What's this?" bellowed the general. I landed at the feet of a skeleton warrior who hissed. "An intruder," the general growled. "One cloaked in darkness. Seal the doors." "It's Percy Jackson." "It has to be," Luke yelled. "Oh my god, Luke, get over yourself." I sprinted for the exit, but I heard a ripping sound and realized the skeleton warrior had taken a chunk out of my sleeve. When I glanced back, he was holding the fabric up to his nose, sniffing the scent, handing it around to his friends. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I squeezed through the door just as the guard slammed it shut behind me. And then I ran. I don't know. Was Percy being smart? No. Was Percy being dumb? Yes. Will he be safe? We are not sure, because the prophecy says one of them perishes and one of them dies by Oath's parent hand and the other is lost. My god. It's just chapter 9 and so much happened. We got to see fuzzy little kittens, a dozen of it, which I would totally adopt, by the way. And some dinosaur creatures were planted. Oh my god, they were planted. Imagine if I cut my nails and planted them and poured that red liquid on it. Would there be a bunch of evil me's running around? I mean, the idea is very intriguing. I could get so much done. Ah, we could discuss about this all day, but we have to finish chapter 10. And after chapter 10, we can discuss it for a minute. Chapter 10. I break a few rocket ships. I don't think anybody would be pleased with that, Percy. I tore across the mall, not daring to look behind. I burst into the Air and Space Museum and took off my invisibility cap once I was through the admissions area. The main part of the museum was one huge room with rockets and airplanes hanging from the ceiling. 3 levels of balconies curled around, so you could look at the exhibits from all different heights. The place wasn't crowded, just a few families and a couple of tour groups of kids, probably doing one of those holiday school trips. I wanted to yell at them all to leave, but I figured that would only get me arrested. I had to find Thalia, Grover, and Hunters. Any minute, the skeleton dudes were going to invade the museum, and I didn't think they would settle for an audio tour. I ran into Thalia, literally. I was barreling up the ramp of the top floor balcony and slammed into her, knocking her into an Apollo space capsule. Grover yelped in surprise. Before I could regain my balance, Zoe and Bianca had arrows notched, aimed at my chest. Their bows had just appeared out of nowhere. Then Zoe realized who I was. She didn't seem anxious to lower her bow. "You! How dare you show thy face here?" "Percy, thank goodness," Grover said. Zoe glared at him, and he blushed. "I mean, gosh, you're not supposed to be here." "Look," I said, trying to catch my breath. "He's here." The anger in Thalia's eyes immediately melted. She put her hand on a silver bracelet. "Where?" I told them about the National History Museum, Dr. Thorne, Luke, and the General. "The General is here?" "That is impossible. You lie." "Why would I lie?" "Look, there's no time. Skeleton warriors." "What? How many?" Thalia demanded. 12, I said. "And that's not all. The guy, the general, he said he was sending something, a playmate to distract you over here. A monster." Thalia and Grover exchanged looks. "We were following Artemis's trail. I was pretty sure it led here. Some powerful monster scent. She must have stopped here looking for the mystery monster. But we haven't found anything yet," Grover said. "Zoe, if it is the general," Bianca said nervously. "It cannot be," Zoe snapped. "Percy must have seen an iris message or some other illusion. Illusions don't crack marble floors," I told her. Zoe took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. I didn't know why she was taking it so personally or how she knew this general guy, but I figured now wasn't the time to ask. Ooh, 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 oh, okay, okay. So I figured something out. Not figured something out. I think it might be true. Since Zoe and the general don't get along, maybe the general is Zoe's father, and Zoe would be the one to die at his parent, her parents' hand. So maybe general kills Zoe. Just putting it out there. Zoe took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. I didn't know why she was taking it so personally, or how she knew this general guy, but I figured now wasn't the time to ask. If Percy is telling the truth about the skeleton warriors, we have no time to argue. They are the worst, the most horrible. We must leave now. Good idea, I said. I was not including thee, boy. You are not part of this quest. Hey, I'm trying to save your lives. You shouldn't have come, Percy, Thalia said grimly. But you're here now. Come on, let's get back to the van. That is not thy decision, Zoe snapped. Thalia scowled at her. You're not the boss here, Zoe. I don't care how old you are. You're still a conceited little brat. You never had any wisdom when it came to boys. You never could leave them behind, Zoe growled. Thalia looked like she was about to hit Zoe. Then everyone froze. I heard her growl so loud I thought one of the engines was starting up. Below us, a few adults screamed. A little kid's voice screeched with delight. Kitty! Something enormous bounded up the ramp. It was the size of a pickup truck with silver claws and golden glittering fur. I'd seen this monster once before. 2 years ago. I'd glimpsed it briefly from a train. Now up close and personal, it looked even bigger. The Neiman lion. Don't move, Thalia said. The lion roared so loud he parted my hair. His fangs gleamed like stainless steel. Separate on my mark. Try to keep it distracted, Zoe said. Until when? Grover asked. Until I think of a way to kill it. Go! I uncapped Riptide and rolled to the left. Arrows whistled past me and Grover played a sharp tweet tweet cadence on his reed pipes. It turned I turned and saw Zoe and Bianca climbing the Apollo capsule. They were firing arrows, one after another, all shattering harmlessly against the lion's metallic fur. The lion swiped the capsule and tipped it on its side, spilling the hunters off the back. Grover played a frantic, horrible tune, and the lion turned towards him, but Thalia stepped into its path, holding up Aegis, and the lion recoiled. Roar! Here! Back! Thalia said. The lion growled and clawed the air, but it retreated as if the shield were a blazing fire. For a second I thought Thalia had it under control. Then I saw a lion crouching, its leg muscles tensing. I'd seen enough catfights in the alleys around my apartment in New York. I knew the lion was going to pounce. Hey! I yelled. I don't know what I was thinking, but I charged the beast. I just wanted to get it away from my friends. I slashed with Riptide, a good strike to the flank that should have cut the monster into meow mix, but the blade just clanged against its fur in a burst of sparks. The lion raked me with its claws, ripping off a chunk of my coat. I backed against the railing. It sprang at me, a half a ton of monster, and I had no choice but to turn and jump. I landed on the wing of an old-fashioned silver aeroplane, which pitched and almost spilled me to the floor, 3 stories below. The arrow whizzed past my head. The lion jumped onto the aeroplane and the cords holding it began to groan. The lion swiped at me. I dropped onto the next exhibit, a weird-looking spacecraft with blades like a helicopter. I looked up and saw the lion roar. Inside its maw, a pink tongue and throat. Its mouth, I thought. Its fur was completely invulnerable, but if I could strike it in the mouth, the only problem was the monster would move too quickly. Between its claws and fangs, I couldn't get close without getting sliced to pieces. "Zoe!" I shouted. "Target the mouth!" The monster lunged. An arrow zipped past it, missing completely, and I dropped from spaceship onto the floor of an exhibit, a huge model of Earth. I slid down Russia and dropped off the equator. The Nemean lion growled and steadied itself on the spacecraft, but its weight was too much. One of the cords snapped as the display swung down like a pendulum. Pendul The lion leaped off into the model Earth's north pole. "Grover, clear the area!" Group of kids were running around screaming. Grover tried to corral them away from monster just as the other cord on the spaceship snapped. The exhibit crashed to the floor. Thalia dropped off the second floor railing and landed across me on the other side of the globe. The lion regarded us both, trying to decide which one of us to kill first. Zoe and Bianca were above us, bows ready, but they kept having to move around to get a good angle. No clear shot. Get it to open its mouth more. The lion snarled from top of the globe. I looked around. Options. I needed the gift shop. I had a vague memory from my trip here as a little kid. Something I'd made my mom buy me, and I regretted it. If they still sold that stuff. Thalia, keep it occupied. She nodded grimly. Hiya! She pointed her spear, and a spidery arc of blue electricity shot out, zapping the lion in the tail. Roar! The lion turned and pounced. Thalia rolled out of its way, holding up Aegis to keep the monster at bay, and I ran for the gift shop. "This is no time for souvenirs, boy," Zoe yelled. I dashed into the shop, knocking over rows of T-shirts, jumping over tables full of glow-in-the-dark planets and space ooze. The sales lady didn't protest. She was too busy cowering behind her cash register. There, on the far wall, glittery silver packets. Whole racks of them. I scooped up every kind I could find and ran out of the shop with an armful. Zoe and Bianca were still showering arrows on the monster, but it was no good. The lion seemed to know better than to open its mouth too much. It snapped at Thalia, slashed its claws. It even kept its eyes narrowed to tiny slits. Thalia jabbed at the monster and backed up. The lion pressed her. "Percy, whatever you're going to do!" she called. The lion roared and swatted her like a cat toy, sending her flying into the side of a Titan rocket. Her head hit the metal and she slid to the floor. "Hey!" I yelled at the lion. I was too far to strike, so I took a risk. I hurled Riptide like a throwing knife. It bounced off the lion's side, but that was enough to get the monster's attention. It turned towards me and snarled. There was only one way to get close enough. I charged, and as the lion leaped to intercept me, I chucked a space food pouch into its maw, a chunk of cellophane wrapped freeze dried strawberry parfait. The lion's eyes got wide and it gagged like a cat with hairball. I couldn't blame it. I remembered feeling the same way when I tried to eat space food as a kid. The stuff was just plain nasty. "Zoe, get ready!" I yelled. Behind me I could hear people screaming. Grover was playing another horrible song on his pipe. I scrambled away from the lion. It managed to choke down the space food packet and looked at me with pure hate. "Snack time!" I yelled. It made the mistake of roaring at me, and I got an ice cream sandwich in its throat. Fortunately, I had always been a pretty good pitcher, even though baseball wasn't my game. Before the lion could stop gagging, I shot in two more flavors of ice cream and a freeze-dried spaghetti dinner. The lion's eyes bugged. It opened its mouth wide and reared up on its back paws, trying to get away from me. "Now!" I yelled. Immediately, arrows sprouted from the lion's maw. 2, 4, 6. The lion thrashed wildly, turned and fell backwards, and then it was still. Alarms wailed throughout the museum. People were flocking to the exits. Security guards were running around in a panic with no idea what's going on. Grover knelt at Thalia's side and helped her up. She seemed okay, just a little dazed. Zoe and Bianca dropped from balcony and landed next to me. Zoe eyed me cautiously. That was an interesting strategy. Hey, it worked. She didn't argue. The lion seemed to be melting, the way dead monsters do sometimes, while there was nothing left but its glittery fur coat, and even that seemed to be shrinking to the size of a normal lion's pelt. Take it, Zoe told me. What? The lion's fur? Isn't that like an animal rights violation or something? I stared at her. It is a spoil of war. It is rightly thine, she told me. You killed it. She shook her head, almost smiling. I think thy ice cream sandwich did that. Fair is fair, Percy Jackson. Take the fur. I lifted it up. It was surprisingly light. The fur was smooth and soft. It didn't feel at all like something that could stop a blade. As I watched, the pelt shifted and changed into a full length golden brown coat. Not exactly my style, I murmured. We have to get out of here. The security guards won't stay confused for long. I noticed for the first time how strange it was that the guards hadn't rushed towards to arrest us. They were scrambling in all directions except ours, like they were madly searching for something. A few were running into walls or each other. You did that? I asked Grover. He nodded, looking a little embarrassed. A minor confusion song. I played some Barry Manilow. It works every time, but it'll only last a few seconds. The security guards are not our biggest worry. Look, Zoe said. Through the glass walls of the museum, I could see a group of men walking across the lawn. Grey men in grey camouflage outfits. They were too far away for us to see their eyes, but I could see their gaze aimed straight at me. Go. They'll be hunting me. I'll distract them. No, we go together, Zoe said. But you said, I stared at her. You're part of this quest now, Zoe said grudgingly. I do not like it, but there is no changing fate. You are the fifth quest member. We are not leaving anyone behind. Aww. I like Zoe's character progression. I think it was very slick, very nice, and I don't know if my theory of Zoe dying is correct. Then maybe I'm going to regret liking her. This is like watching a daily episode and being left at a cliffhanger. I cannot continue the entire book for the entire day because that would require a live stream, and I used to do that, but none of you would watch it. So maybe next time, maybe once I build a nice community, then I could have a great time watching live and freaking people out and talking about cliffhangers and everything. So anyway, thank you so much for watching the video. If you really like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I will see you guys tomorrow with 2 more chapters. Bye.